Hey there, I'm Jenna. Before I dive into my story, don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more tales like this one. I had just turned 32 when I decided to buy my first house. A charming little place with a cozy backyard, perfect for my 2 dogs. This purchase was more than just a financial investment. It was my declaration of independence, my way of showing that I was finally in control of my own life. The day of the housewarming arrived, filled with a mix of excitement and nerves. I planned every detail meticulously, wanting this celebration to be a perfect blend of fun and formality, a true milestone. My parents were at the top of the guest list, the only family I had invited, given the complicated dynamics that extending further would have brought. As guests started arriving, the afternoon buzzed with laughter and chatter. I was in the middle of showing my college friend Lisa the renovations I had planned when the doorbell rang again. Expecting a neighbor or a late-arriving friend, I opened the door with a smile. Standing there in the doorway were my mom, Carson, and his daughter, Vanessa. Carson gave me a wide grin that didn't quite reach his eyes, while Vanessa looked around my living room like she'd just stepped into a thrift shop. "Jenna, darling, I hope you don't mind us bringing a little extra company," my mom chirped, breezing past me with a flurry of apologies I barely absorbed. For a moment, I was too stunned to speak. "Mom, I thought it was just going to be us." I finally managed, my voice a mixture of confusion and irritation. "Oh honey, I knew you wouldn't mind. Carson really wanted to see your place, and Vanessa's been so excited to meet you," my mother gushed, as if she hadn't just completely disregarded my explicit guest list. As the party went on, I tried to shake off the annoyance, telling myself it could still be a good day. But I was wrong. I would have chosen a different color here. "This shade is so 2010. Vanessa sneered, loud enough for a group of my friends to hear as they toured the living room. The room fell into an awkward silence, my friends exchanging glances. I felt my cheeks heat up with a mix of embarrassment and anger. This was supposed to be my celebration, my day to shine in my new home. I couldn't let her ruin it. Turning to face Vanessa, I forced a smile. "Well, Vanessa, not all of us need to follow the latest trends to feel good about our homes. Some of us prefer a more timeless approach," I shot back, my words sharper than I intended. The room erupted in a mix of surprised laughter and uncomfortable murmurs. "Why would anyone arrange their living room like this? It's almost like she's never heard of interior design," Vanessa quipped again. That was it. I couldn't hold back any longer. My friends, trying to hide their discomfort, looked on as I marched over to where Vanessa stood, a smug grin on her face. The room hushed, the tension palpable. "You know, Vanessa, if you have suggestions, I'm all ears, but maybe we could discuss them without you insulting my choices in front of my guests," I said, my voice calm but firm, the challenge clear. She blinked, taken aback, then scoffed. "I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. No need to be so sensitive," she replied dismissively. But the murmurs from the crowd told me they were not, in fact, thinking anything of the sort. My friends' faces showed a mix of support and anticipation, the air thick with awkwardness, but also a hint of solidarity for my stand. Just as I thought the ordeal with Vanessa was about to blow over, my mom pulled me aside, her expression fraught with anxiety and a plea I knew all too well. "Jenna, could we talk about something in private?" she asked, her tone soft, almost apologetic. In the quiet of the hallway, away from prying eyes and ears, she dropped the bombshell. "Honey, I know this is a lot to ask, but could Vanessa possibly stay with you for a while? Just until they sort out their living situation." The request hit me like a punch. "Mom, I can't do that. This is my space, and after tonight, it's clear Vanessa and I aren't exactly compatible," I said, my voice firm. My mother's face fell, her disappointment palpable. "Jenna, she's struggling. You know how tough Carson can be on her. It would only be for a little while," she pressed, the weight of her expectation heavy on my shoulders. This was typical, her trying to bridge gaps by putting me in uncomfortable positions. But this was too much. "Mom, no, I need to set boundaries. I can't have her stay here, not after how she's behaved. I'm sorry, but that's my final answer," I said, the finality in my tone unmistakable. The hurt in her eyes was something I hated to cause. But as she walked away, her shoulders slumped, I felt a mix of triumph and dread. Triumph because I had stood up for myself, dread because I knew this wasn't the end of it. As the party wound down and the last guest departed, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just opened a new, unwelcome chapter in my life. The confrontation with Vanessa had been necessary, but it felt like I had stirred a hornet's nest. After everyone left, the house felt eerily quiet, the echoes of laughter replaced by a somber stillness. I began to clean up, the task mundane but grounding. Each plate I washed and every crumb I swept away felt like an attempt to clear the mess of the evening. Not just the physical debris, but the emotional turmoil that had spilled over. Later, as I lay in bed, the house dark and still around me, I replayed the evening in my mind. My spine tingled with apprehension at what was to come. Vanessa's smirk, Carson's disapproving glare, and my mother's disappointment haunted the edges of my thoughts. As sleep finally claimed me, I clung to the hope that perhaps the fallout wouldn't be as bad as I feared. But deep down, I knew better. This was just the beginning, and the repercussions of my refusal would ripple out farther than I could have imagined. The next morning started ordinarily enough: coffee, a quick scroll through emails, and a to-do list for the day ahead. But that normalcy shattered with a ping from my phone, a security alert from my home system. Panic tightened in my chest as I viewed the live feed. Someone was at my house. I rushed home, my mind racing with possibilities, but nothing prepared me for the scene I encountered. The locks had been changed. My key was useless against the new mechanism. Peering through the window, my blood boiled as I saw Vanessa lounging on my sofa, a smug smile on her face. "What are you doing in my house?" I shouted through the door. The door swung open, and there stood Carson, his grin wide and unwelcoming. "Oh, Jenna, we thought we'd take you up on that offer to stay after all," he sneered, his voice dripping with mock sympathy. "There was no offer, Carson. Get out of my house now," I demanded, my voice sharp with anger. Carson leaned against the doorway, his posture relaxed, a stark contrast to the tightening grip of fury in my voice. "Now, Jenna, let's not be hasty. You wouldn't want to upset your mother, would you? Remember her issues with the police?" His words hit their mark. He knew exactly how to manipulate the situation, using my mother's traumatic history with law enforcement to deter me. My mother had always been terrified of any involvement with the police, a fear born from a deeply troubling incident in her past. Carson was aware of this and wielded that knowledge like a weapon. But I couldn't let that stop me. This was my home, my sanctuary. Taking a deep breath, I pulled out my phone. "I'm calling the police, Carson. You can't just break into someone's house and change the locks," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. His smirk faltered, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face as I dialed. Within minutes, the sound of sirens filled the street. The police arrived swiftly, their questions pointed and direct. Carson and Vanessa's attempts to spin the situation fell flat against the legal reality of their actions. "I have every right to secure my property," Carson argued, his confidence waning under the officer's unimpressed gaze. "The locks were changed without permission, and she was not notified," one officer noted, scribbling in his notebook. The law was clear, and my unwelcome guests had no leg to stand on. The eviction was quick. Carson and Vanessa were escorted out, their protests muted by the firm instructions of the police. Watching them leave, a mix of relief and sorrow washed over me. Relief that my home was mine again. Sorrow for the inevitable fallout this would cause with my mother. As the police finished their report, one officer lingered. "Are you going to be okay?" he asked, his tone genuine. I nodded, though my heart was heavy. "Yes, thank you. I didn't have a choice." He offered a sympathetic smile before leaving. The door closed behind him, and I was alone in the quiet aftermath. The space felt larger and emptier somehow. I walked through each room, reaffirming my presence in the space that was almost taken from me. The weight of the day's events pressed down on me, a reminder of the battles I still faced. Carson and Vanessa might be gone for now, but I knew this wasn't over. The consequences of the day would ripple through my family, possibly irreversibly. Yet despite the turmoil, a stubborn flame of defiance flickered within me. This was my home, and I would fight for it, no matter the cost. The silence of the evening was shattered by the sharp ring of my phone. My heart sank as I saw my mom's name flash across the screen. I braced myself, knowing this conversation was inevitable. "Mom," I answered, my voice a whisper of apprehension. "Jenna," she began, her tone thick with emotion. How could you do this to Carson and Vanessa after everything they've been through?" Her words stung, and I struggled to keep my voice steady. "Mom, they broke into my house. They changed my locks. What was I supposed to do? Just let them take over my home?" "You could have handled it differently, Jenna. You know how I feel about the police, she said, her voice trembling with a mixture of anger and disappointment. Mom, I didn't have any other choice. They left me no choice, I said, the frustration evident in my tone. This is my home, and I had to protect it. There was a heavy pause on the line, the weight of her next words hanging between us. I can't believe this. I thought you understood, Jenna. I thought you cared more about your family. I do care, Mom, but shouldn't my safety and my rights matter too? Why is it always about what I can do for others and not about what's right for me? The questions tumbled out, fueled by years of suppressed feelings. You just don't get it, do you? Her voice broke, laden with a mix of anger and sorrow. I can't support this. I can't be part of this. My throat tightened. What are you saying? I asked, dreading the answer. I think it's better if we don't talk for a while. I need to think about all this. With those final words, she ended the call, leaving a silence that felt like a void. The phone slipped from my grasp, clattering to the floor. My mother, my lifelong anchor, had cast me adrift over this. I sank onto the couch, feeling the fabric of the cushions that no comfort could soften. Looking out the window, the night seemed endless. The contours of my home, usually so comforting, now felt alien, reshaped by the day's events. Thoughts of family, loyalty, manipulation, and the personal cost of standing up for oneself swirled through my mind. Was there a different way I could have handled things? A path that wouldn't have led to this rift? As the night drew on, I wrestled with these thoughts. Manipulation wasn't just about coercing someone. It was about making them feel guilty for standing firm. Carson had used my mother's fears against me, and now my mother was unwittingly doing the same with her disappointment. By dawn, a resolve settled over me. Protecting my emotional and psychological space was as vital as defending my physical one. The rift with my mother was painful but necessary for my growth. Standing there in the quiet morning, I knew the battle for my home was over, but the journey to reclaim my life had just begun. As the days turned into weeks, the initial sting of my mother's words dulled into a persistent ache, a constant reminder of the price of my newfound autonomy. The silence from her end was deafening, yet with each passing day, I found pieces of myself that I hadn't realized were lost in a fray of familial obligations. My home, once a battleground of invasion and conflict, slowly transformed back into the sanctuary I had envisioned. I repainted the living room, erasing the last traces of Vanessa's scornful marks. With each stroke of the brush, new locks, stronger and more secure, clicked reassuringly under my fingers, symbolizing the barriers I was learning to set. In the solitude of my reclaimed space, I discovered a resilience I had never given myself credit for. My friends and neighbors, aware of the ordeal, rallied around me. Their support was a balm to the isolation inflicted by my family's absence. Dinners, movie nights, and long walks with those who chose to stay by my side filled my days, reminding me that family isn't just about blood. It's also about who stands with you when the ground falls away. The fate of Carson and Vanessa remained a distant murmur in my life, their paths diverging from mine in the wake of the eviction. Rumors of their struggles occasionally reached me through mutual acquaintances, but they no longer held sway over my emotions. My focus was on rebuilding, on fortifying the life I chose rather than the one imposed upon me. One crisp morning, as I stood in my garden planting seeds that would one day bloom into vibrant flowers, I realized that this was what true independence felt like. Not the absence of conflict, but the presence of peace in its aftermath. The estrangement from my mother was a deep scar, one that might never fully heal, but it was also a testament to the lengths I would go to protect my peace. The journey to self-empowerment is often a solitary one, fraught with tough decisions and painful reckonings. Yet, as I looked around at the home I fought to protect, I knew it was all worth it. Here, in my own space, I was free to live life on my terms, surrounded by those who respected and supported my boundaries. This wasn't just a house, it was my declaration of independence, my claim to a life unscripted by others. Now that our story has come to an end, what would you have done if you were in Jenna's shoes? Would you prioritize family peace or personal boundaries?